Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. Tonight is a host's chat, and I'm so excited to be a part of it, as I always am. My name is Shaun Benson. I am one of your hosts, and we're going to jump right in with a question, as we always do, and then we'll get into the intros for everybody in a little bit. So, the opening question, and I'm going to start with you, Sensei Dauphin, then we'll go Sensei Suino, and then Hanshi Legacy. We just had this magnificent weekend where we spent 2.5 days, three if you count Friday, down in Ottawa-Gatineau for the Capital Conquest event. We talked about that. Go check out our other episodes if you're uncertain what we're talking about. And we literally trained like 8-12 hours, depending on how you approach the weekend. And we're just going to go through and chat about our most memorable moments, or favorite moments, or funniest moments, or wherever you want to go with it. Pick a few, Sensei Dauphin.
So I can't not say that one of my most favorite moments was Alden TKOing that guy in the second round. And I want to say that with all due respect, because I do know Danny. He's a good fighter. He's well trained. Ben trains him really good. He comes from a really good pedigree, which actually made it better for me, right? That Alden didn't fight like a sandbagger. He fought a good guy. He did a great job. You know, I liked in the ring when he did his breathing and I said, "How you feeling?" And he said, "Overwhelmed." And I said, "Well, you're doing fucking great. Like, get on your heels. Every time that guy plants his feet, put some bombs on him." Sensei Legacy gave him some great advice for a front kick.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, that was a really great moment. All of that stuff. Another really good moment for me is just our hotel lobby. Our hotel lobby was like Event Horizon. You couldn't get out of that lobby without running into people. First place I ever met Mike Wall in person. First place I met Johan Skjelberg in person. First place where, you walked in, I walked down, there's Hanshi Sai grabbing a cup of coffee, runs over, throws a big bear hug on me. I just loved the hotel lobby. And then I guess I'll keep it brief and turn it over. There's lots of great moments, but I was really super proud to be teaching on the same floor with Sensei Suino and Sensei Legacy. That's a real high moment for me, to be included in that level of instruction, and with Johan Skjelberg and Hanshi. To be an instructor on the floor with that level of instruction is a point of pride for me. I'll never forget it. And I'm so proud to have done that.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. Sensei Suino, what about you? Memorable, exciting, fun? How do you want to go?
It's hard to narrow it down. There were so many great moments, and not just moments, but hours. I mean, I love teaching on the floor. Everybody that came to my seminars was super excited, very focused, despite the distractions and the noise. It wasn't ideal circumstances, but everybody focused really, really well. And some people that I really respect in other martial arts showed up to take my sessions. I did the same. So my second moment were the two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminars I attended. One was taught by Mike Wall. Both very competent instructors, both very friendly people, super helpful, safe training. Just can't say enough good things about those guys. And then I think, I'm not really a fanboy in any world, but I got about as close as I could be just to see some of the people that walked in the door. Jean-Yves Theriault was there, just a superb human being. Ben Ladouceur is younger than me, but I just love his kickboxing. Billy Blanks was there. Just, really cool human beings. It turned out that not only a fantastic martial artist, but just great people. And to get 1,000 people in a room with no drama, right? I mean, I don't know what people were talking about on their own, but when they were in public, everybody was super civil, supportive, positive, and helpful. And I just can't imagine a better weekend. It was amazing.
Right on. Thanks. What about you?
Except for one person that will remain nameless.
Okay, well, if they'll remain nameless, we won't name them.
But they weren't super civil.
Fair enough. There's no path to success that way.
We're gonna have to text each other. I don't know if I know this story. Yeah. Hanshi Legacy, what about you? Most memorable, enjoyable, whatever.
I would have to say one of the things I enjoyed the most was just Alden being part of our club and just being a good fighter. Just like he came from your club in Toronto. I know that Sensei Dauphin and that helped him, but that was probably the highlight for me as being part of the club. But I always really enjoy the Black Belt Hall of Fame, because these are a very, very, very high point in their martial arts career, you know, to be recognized by their peers. And the other thing that I noticed the most is, amongst the deadliest people in the world is the most peaceful place. There's none of them, you know, you're walking around and it's quiet, it's peaceful, they're nice. I really enjoyed meeting the people from Europe, from Sweden. Those guys are great martial artists as well. And for me, sitting back, being quiet and watching what they did, getting to go around all the rings when I wasn't teaching and watching what they were teaching. And the highlight of that to me, in a way, was Lorne Bernard, because he is from the Chinese white crane, which my white crane is developed from. The whole weekend is really, really great. So it's really hard to pick one thing.
Thanks,
How about
Hanshi.
you?
I'm going to kind of go in reverse order and speak uncharacteristically long on this one, because normally I try and defer, but I want to talk about my 2 training sessions. I loved my training. I did some MMA stuff. I did some ground stuff, but you know, my favorite 2 sessions was training with you, Sensei Dauphin, and Ben Ladouceur. I loved that kickbox session. I was doing it with Alden, who's my student, and I had you as the instructor, and it was just a lightning session. Like, it was so much kicking, so much punching, so much timing. It was beautiful. And with you, Sensei Suino, like, it was a treat to do those sword drills with you. And the other thing I want to add is that one of my big standout moments was with Robert, sitting next to him at the Black Belt Hall of Fame, Robert Schlumsky, who is part of this show and running it tonight. And it was just such a deep reminder, you know, I mean, God, Hanshi, sitting next to you, cornering my student, like, these people on this call plus Robert, all my favorite moments. And it reminds me that while I love being part of the bigger community, and while I really felt special this weekend, you know, this show has let some people know who I am in a way that then I was able to interact on in ways that I never expected to be able to in the martial arts. So that's very cool, and I appreciate it. But I just want to spend as much time with the people I know and train with my teachers as much as possible for the rest of my life, because I don't have enough time to do that as it is. And being at a massive event, it was like, it's about you 3 and Robert. And then I do want to, this is where I'm going to go just a little long with Alden. You know, it was just so exciting. I was as nervous as if I was fighting when he went in there for the first 10 seconds. I know that guy inside out when he got a little rocked in that first 30 seconds. And then I watched him come back, calm down. Sensei, watching you, Sensei Dauphin, at the halftime, just that smile you had on your face. Alden said, he goes, you know, Sensei didn't say much, but he just had this warm look, like I was fine. And I was like, and you were fine. And then he came back and got on the game plan. And just for those watching, listening, we keep talking about this guy, Alden. Alden Adair is a 2nd degree black belt in our style, Legacy Shorin Karate Jitsu. And he's my Toronto student, first student I got to black belt. And he went and did his first full contact kickbox match. And he did it with karate. He didn't go get a different coach. He didn't go do a different thing. He just said, I want to see if karate can do what I believe karate can do. And I think that's one of the things that made me so excited, was to be with Hanshi Legacy, with Sensei Dauphin, me in the middle, and then Alden. I can't even think about it without getting emotional. It just makes me so proud to be a part of that river. So highlight times 10.
You know, Shaun, the one thing we should shine some light on Alden for too is he did work his ass off to get in there. So, you know, Alden was weighing in at around 210. If you've never seen him, if you're watching the show and you've never seen him, well, you have, because he's an actor, but
Right.
He's big, strong, fast, usually comes in somewhere around 210. Jean-Yves Theriault said, can you get him under 200? Closest to 190 you could get would be great. He stepped on the scale and looked over his shoulder and said, I'm 191.
Yeah.
He did that in 3 weeks. He got himself from 210 to 191 and was great, like in good shape. I mean, he was tired after, but he did the work to win. He did the work. He did the work.
Did the work. And just, this isn't about karate per se. I mean, it is when I talk about it, but it's about technique. Like whoever's watching, whatever style you do, when I watched you coach or when I worked with them, it was just a reminder of where to point your knee when you throw that kick. A reminder, Hanshi, you even reminded him before the fight. Not a lot of people are turning their hip over and relaxing on their punch. They're pushing too much. And that's how he won, with that kick and that punch. It was just basics, low movement basics, and then conditioning, of course. But I thought that was so cool, like to do the work, but the work was on the basics. And, Sensei Dauphin, you mentioned, let's have him down just to do some kata and just chill. He did some kata the week before our class because I didn't want him to get hurt or spar with any of our white or yellow belts in a way that might get some weird finger in his eye. Best kata I've ever seen him do. And he has not been focused on kata lately, but this is a guy who's been thinking fighting will shock her, that in a fighting system that makes his kata better.
We're all fanboying on Alden.
Yeah, he earned it.
Yeah, Sensei Legacy, you and I talked about it too. He did something more for all of us than we actually did for him.
In my opinion, he shows that karate, if you look at MMA and that, karate, the basis of karate is a good foundation for all kickboxers or MMA fighters or whatnot. It develops your mind. And the thing about Alden that we're failing to bring forth is that he is intelligent. Because when we were coaching him, when he went into the ring, you could see the results. He had presence of mind. And a lot of guys will tell you, people who get excited, like I had mentioned before, that you need to be in a state of mushin or no-mindedness when you're fighting, so that training you did can shine through. He did exactly that. He was very calm. If he'd have gotten excited after getting hit, I know some of our other fighters had tried that and it didn't work for them.
It's a good point, Sensei.
Well, and this is obviously about that fight, but it's something that I think is important too. Like we were talking about it before, and I even said to him, I said, look, and Sensei Dauphin, you talked about this, like, I'm glad he got hit. I'm glad he struggled that first round. I'm glad he had to refine the game. If he goes in and the game plan just works, then it just seems like you just need to think about it beforehand and you'll win. But I think what he learned is that a fight's a fight.
He didn't struggle. He won the first round. He didn't fight the way he wanted to fight in the first round, but he won the first round. Yeah. I've watched it a number of times. He landed more techniques.
That's right.
Yeah, he won the first round. He was ahead on the scorecards.
Well, and because he got rocked, when I showed him that night, somebody sent me the fight. He's like, I feel like I did better than I thought the first round. I said, you did way better than you thought the first round. You were a little tight. You didn't move quite as much as we planned, but you did fine. And then that's why you could come back and chill out round two. Shall we do an intro?
Well, let me just jump in with one more thought, because we'll probably move to another topic. This puts into relief something that I've thought about a lot over the years. I can't remember the first time I came up to Hanshi's dojo in St. Thomas, probably 1992 or something like that. I've been around Hanshi's karate a lot over 30 years, been to seminars. I've never heard Hanshi say you should get excited or lose your temper or fight with emotion. It's always been, listen, here's a fighting tactic, here's a move, here's a position, here's a way of thinking, right? Supremely rational approach to fighting. And I love what we've just said about Alden, right? Is that he's the offspring of that tradition. It's pretty freaking cool.
May I boldly say that coming out of our club have been a few world champions, and they don't come and get them and teach them how to fight. They come and get them and convert them to kickboxing. We've had karate is ample enough for the street and the ring. Your mind is trained properly. if you have a proper sensei who understands.
Well, and that's the point, Hachi. Everybody does in your
and-
tradition.
And I love that. I love that. And you know, some of those guys that have a professional ring career, a lot of them, their career is done once that happens. But the true champions go back to karate and pay back. They pay back what they've gotten, their recognition, their training, their well-being to martial arts, in my opinion.
Well, Sensei Suino, you just mentioned that, and I want to, last week when we talked to Sensei Andrzejewski, and if you haven't seen that episode, go check that out. That'll be up. Is that up right now?
It's up,
Yeah, people can go watch that. I love the way she talked about just having to the whole point is to calm down when you enter that ring. And, that's been my greatest challenge in martial arts is when the light's on, I feel my heart beating. I feel my breath shortening. I feel this part of my neck getting hot. Everybody has their own response, but that is mine. That can be mine for club sparring some nights. And I love that is a challenge for me because I don't get stressed in front of a 2,000 person crowd with a microphone anymore. But I do get stressed to stand in front of my teachers and do a kata on some level that other thing doesn't do. And I love that.
Or when you teach at World Martial Arts Live.
That's exactly it, right?
Love it.
And again, I'm using your words, Hachi.
Never seen your ears so red, Benson.
It's never been that red.
I could have roasted a marshmallow on those ears. But you did great. Like you still
I appreciate
had to
it.
be in that spot.
And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Is karate puts me in that place and then teaches me that place is okay. And when I was younger, I thought karate would eliminate that. And Hachi, you've talked about this in terms of fear, like you not everybody has fear, but you've mentioned having fear and other people might not believe it. And it's like, it's not about not having fear. It's about it being okay and it not derailing the train or the plan or the attempt at no mind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. This is fun. Sensei Suino is who I get to introduce every week when we do this, and when we do something a little more in the long form. I actually want to use the long form to ask you a question. Sensei Suino, I know you're going to be chill about this. Sensei Suino founded the Japanese Martial Arts Center. He's an 8th Dan in Muso Jikin Ishinryu Iaido and a 6th Dan in Jiu-Jitsu and in Judo. And the thing I want to ask you about Sensei Suino, as part of your intro, is you started in 1968. That is astonishing. How in God's name do you still get up and go, I need to do this more?
I don't know. It comes to me. It does. I don't come to it. Right. It's so crazy. We talked about this on episode 1 of this show. 8 years old, little kid with a big mouth in a very diverse neighborhood with a lot of challenges. And my parents said, if we don't teach this kid some self-defense, he's not going to make it. So they took me to the YMCA to learn judo. And I swear to you, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I fell in love with judo within the first minute that I saw it. And there's ups and downs. Some days it's a little easier to go to the dojo than others. But man, I had to go teach 2 intro lessons tonight, and I was jacked. Like, I don't know. It comes to me. I don't know. I got no secrets I got no ancient secrets of the martial arts on this topic. Yeah. I love martial arts, and I guess I was born to do it, like everybody on this call.
I mean, it was a leading question because I've never have I gotten a sense from you, crap, I got to go to the office. It's like, I got to get out of the office so I can get to that room and teach or train.
Can't explain it. It's one of the great mysteries of the universe.
Thanks, Sensei.
I get to introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin. I'm not going to ask him any questions. I'm going to tell him how it's going to be. Randy and I do some of the heavy lifting behind the scenes to kind of think about how the show should go. And then everybody else on the crew does a tremendous amount of work to help make it happen. And we've been dabbling in a new format, which is micro episodes, which are 30 minutes or less, and they're theme driven. And we're really excited to start getting those out to the public pretty soon. They're just taking shape. But Randy and I had a fantastic conversation about fitness and martial arts, which I'm not going to reveal too much about because you got to watch the episode. But like this host chat, when I sit down with Randy or Hanshi or you, Shaun, or even Robert by this time, you know, and turn the camera on or don't turn the camera on for 30 minutes, I swear there is no awkward moment where you go, I don't have anything to say, or I'm not sure what I want to talk to this guy about. It's just a rolling conversation with a ton of great history among people that are passionate about martial arts. And I'm just so blessed and so grateful to be a part of this operation. And so blessed that in early COVID, Randy had this nascent idea and it's turned into something really significant. Randy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I got to talk to you twice today. So this is the format. I was thinking about that since, you know, when I drove away from the university today, I thought, you know, people have complained about Zoom but as a mechanism to actually engage with somebody from a distance, it's amazing. Like, you know, it's not like the telephone where you're not sure where they're sitting, what they're doing, how they're looking. No, like I can see the facial expressions. So yeah, I'm doing great. I was not doing great before we had that call. I was kind of like stressed and tired. And then at the end of that call, I was like, woohoo, got to get to the dojo. Like that was like, it just amped me up. So thank you, Sensei. That was a good intro. And I really appreciate, I don't know if it was my idea. I think it was talked about a lot. Like Benson and I had talked about it. You and I had talked about it, like in different times in our life. And my idea was to bring it to fruition at that time. So, and I'm really grateful that all of us jumped on board, even though it took a little coaxing from Sensei to Sensei Legacy. Let's reveal a secret here. I remember the first test call was actually all of us talking, and Sensei Legacy was on an iPad, and I was on the other side of his garage on my phone, and we were all kind of talking to each other. And then after it was done, Sensei Legacy was like, yeah, we can do this. Like, I can do it. It's not a problem, right? And so that's how the first test call went. It's my extreme honor. I don't want to ever take this lightly to introduce Sensei Legacy. And Sensei Legacy is a legit 10th Dan. There's lots of people who say they're 10th Dans or 11th Dans, or they wear 17 belts and say there's something. Sensei Legacy is a legit 10th Dan. I can say I'm really proud that when I met him, he was a 5th Dan, and I saw him get his 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th Dan. I was there. So like anybody who wants to question it, you can come and talk to me and I'll tell you how it was and how it is and why he's a 10th Dan. I got no problem with that. Started training early in the 70s with Harold Warden. Then Harold Warden was a good enough sensei to push him along to Benny Allen. I named my kid after Benny Allen. I never met the guy, but since the legacy was so adamant about Benny Allen, taught me so much about that man that I said, I got to name my kid after him. Right? Trained with Richard Kim, one of the living legends of our modern era of martial arts history and technique, and now is adamantly a student of Anthony Sandoval. Is an incredible man. Anthony Sandoval is an incredible man. And one thing I would say is, if somebody said to me, I will give you $100 billion, Randy, if you could, but you have to give up your relationship with Sensei Legacy, I would say you can take that $100 billion and stuff it right up your ass, because there's no amount of money or material value that could ever replace the relationship that I've developed with Sensei Legacy. On Tuesday night, I drove down there to do a recommendation, and then I went to his house, and it was just so nice to walk in his house and just feel normal. Kick your boots off, walk in, have a cup of tea, have an amazing hug. I downloaded a bunch of stress onto him, a bunch of things that were really bothering me. And when I walked out the door, I felt lighter and better and aligned with him. And he said to me, you know, what you and I have, like, it's not replaceable. other people in history never had this type of a student sensei relationship. And I'm super proud of that. And I'm super proud of Sensei Legacy. I can't tell you how much pride I have in him and him being my teacher and being in that lineage that we've all talked about just a minute ago. And so that's my introduction tonight for Sensei Legacy. I love him with every fiber of my being, and I'm so proud of him. And I'm so happy that we've been together for the amount of time that we've been together. There's no moment I regret with Sensei Legacy. And I only hope he feels the same. So that's my introduction for Sensei Legacy. Sensei, what do you want to say tonight? Any?
No, I can't follow that for sure.
Well, then, Sensei, if you don't mind, what I want to do, Shaun went on. I'm going to go on a little bit because I want to talk about Shaun Benson a little bit tonight because he never gets to like a big, long introduction, and he deserves it. He's a guy who's been dedicated to martial arts for a really long time. I've said this before. I also love Shaun Benson. I love that man. I've been with him through thick and thin. I've watched him when he was a fuck up, and I've watched him when he's been a success. And then I've watched him be a fuck up again. And then I've watched him. We should call him the Phoenix. That's who Shaun Benson should be, because he burns and then he rises out of the ashes better than he ever was before. Right. And his martial arts is great. He's so good at everything that he does. Like, I just don't know how to express it. He's so intelligent. He's good at music, which I don't care about. I like listening to him play a guitar, but I don't really care about that. He's super intelligent. I don't really care about that. Like, he's amazing at martial arts, which I do care about. He's a great karate person. He was great at Iaido and could be again if he wanted to be. I know he's next level at BJJ. I'm sure he's going to be a black belt in BJJ one day. And the one thing I just value his support of me and Legacy Shorin-ryu. He's one of these guys, and he always will be with me. So that's my introduction for Shaun Benson tonight. And I'm going to just turn it back to him now.
Okay.
That's what you did to me.
Okay. I know, I don't realize it until it's on me. I appreciate it, Sensei. There's no way to express the love I have for the people on this call and for this club and for you. There's just no way. There's no limit to it. And you know, maybe we'll crack into this for a second. I don't know how long this needs to live as a question, but I wouldn't take $100 billion to say goodbye to any of you either. Like, it would be an impossibility. And what am I going to do with the 100 billion? You're the guys I want to build the dojo with, you know, and do the thing with, like the actual physical building and overlooking the ocean or whatever the fuck. Like, there's no one to share it with. There's no joy there.
John, listen,
don't count.
I'll just say some stuff. We talked about this before, right? So you, Ian Scott Watson, got in your dad's Mazda. I drove all the way to Minnesota to meet up with Sensei Legacy and train there. And we burned all the oil out of the car. Like, it almost died while we were doing it. Right. And we were like doing punch buggy shit. Like, Sensei Suino and I just walked up the side of a fucking mountain, stood in an alpine lake, catching trout, just like one after the other as a storm is coming over the mountains. Sensei Legacy and I have kneeled together at the grave of Matsumura, like kneeled down together at the. How do you put a monetary value on any of that shit? If you do, you're a fucking loser. Like, the world doesn't need you if that's what you value, right? The world doesn't need you. And I'm so proud to be part of people who laugh when I say that, right?
We have two great disqualifiers. There's quitters and there's losers. If you stop training martial arts inside 30 years, you're a quitter. And if you'll take money to replace the relationship you have with your best dojo people, you're a fucking loser.
Yeah. And the best dojo people, I just want to say, for me, Sensei Legacy is like a father, right? Or is a father. Sensei Suino, you to me are like that much older brother that I never had, that's always looking out for you and pulling you along And Shaun, you're like that younger brother that I don't know how to encapsulate it, but it's family, right? You wouldn't sell your family for $100 billion, and I wouldn't sell any of these people for $100 billion.
I mean, my dad's 94, so honestly, I'd be like, Dad, we've had a good run, right? Like,
So
like
how much-
honestly,
97 billion? I mean, where
like
we
imagine
on
you
that
tap
number?
out, Dad, and I get 100 billion. Like, can we have this conversation?
Mm.
Like, how many more chats do we need over coffee? To be honest,
Mr. Benson would be like, take 100 billion, Shaun. He's so intelligent. He'd be
Take the
like,
100 billion.
he absolutely would. And again, I know we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but he doesn't want to live too many more years. He literally is like, I don't want to be 100. I don't want to be 98 even, we'll feather out shortly and that'll be right. And I'm like, okay, well, in that case, I'm definitely doing the 100.
Taking 100. That's
I
it.
mean, he's already said it. I'm not saying it. He is.
Well, nobody's listening to this call, right? I mean, maybe you have to arrange this, do something to make this work out.
By the way, I do want to say people are listening to this call, and if you're on their Zoom call, just like any other host chat, we're really fluid and we're so relaxed tonight. And I think we're all really jazzed by each other in the weekend that we had together. But we want you here as part of our living history. We want you asking questions of us, or maybe we'll throw it back on you. And the one great thing about when we do our host chat is we want to throw the camera on you. You don't have to do that. We respect if you don't, but we'd love to. So if you have a question, we'd love to put the camera on you and get the question from you. And Robert's just lit up the chat button at the bottom. So, we'd really love to get your chip-ins because it's really fun to be guided by you and not just by ourselves, because it's fun to get that outside perspective or nudge in a conversational direction.
hey, Shaun, can I push it back in a different direction if everybody doesn't mind?
Please.
Okay, so the one thing I already talked about being proud of being on the floor at Capital Conquest with my instructors. So we talked about highlight moments. I would like to know what is something that all of us were proud of on that weekend. And we can't talk about Alden. So I'm going to qualify by saying he already knows we're proud of him. So what's something that each one of us is proud of? Right. So how about you first, Benz?
No problem. I got two that come to mind, and one specific one's a bit esoteric. The specific one is, 6 months ago, I blew out my meniscus, I tore my popliteal tendon, and I delaminated my bone. And for those who don't know, because I don't know how specifically I've talked about it on this show, nothing happened. Like, I didn't have a moment doing jujitsu or karate or anything else I do where it went ping. I just woke up one day swollen and got the MRI, and I couldn't walk that month very well. Just so you know, the Monday that happened, I woke up the next day and my knee was this big, and I went down to the crane workout with you, Sensei, and you, Hanshi, and I had to pivot a little gimpily. I didn't realize how bad I'd done up my knee. So the thing I'm most proud of personally that way is that I've been so dedicated to what I call my knee-hab, religious about it, changed my diet for it, quietly stressing, relax, test, retreat. And, I got to train 4 hours and then 3 hours, 6 months later, doing full ground game, doing Iaido, doing karate with that workout we did with so many kicks. And I'm just proud of my dedication to my recovery, because one thing I've learned since my mid-30s is that for me, there's no martial arts without my relationship with my body in recovery from martial arts. The other thing, and Hanshi, I know you might appreciate this, that last night when we had that party, I'm learning how to just be me in all situations, not trying to hit up anybody or chat with anybody in a certain way, or, sometimes I'll play guitar, sometimes I don't want to, but just be. At that night, I just felt like me with us there. And it was really nice. And Sensei Suino, I loved our car ride together and getting a little lost. And, that's something that karate's helped me understand. It's taken a long time. It's a long, slow journey for me to being me in all situations without uncertainty or climbing so those are the two things I'm really proud of this weekend.
I like that, Shaun, because I've said to Sensei Suino and Sensei Legacy that you're a late bloomer. You're going to blossom later. So Sensei Suino, what's something you're super proud of? I can think of something you should be proud of, but I'd like to hear what you're proud of.
Well, I'm proud of the fact that not too many weeks before Capital Conquest, we were talking to Shaun and he said, hey, I've got this knee problem. Here are the bunch of things I could do. You think I should have surgery? And we both said, no. And then he went to Capital Conquest and prevailed. What was I proud of at Capital Conquest? Being included, being asked to teach on the floor, having so many people from JMAC and Legacy Shorin-ryu participate in all the seminars, including my own. And then being in the middle of seminars and being able to look over and see the White Crane seminar that Hanshi was teaching on the stage was a really cool feeling. I'm proud of what we've built together as schools with a close relationship and punch, kick, choke, chat. And now as we step into an even bigger stage with World Martial Arts Live and Capital Conquest, I'm proud of the fact that we have a very tight-knit group with a lot of common philosophies. And there was no doubt about any of those things while we were in the midst of 1,000 people for 3 days.
I love that, Sensei. Before I turn it over to Sensei Legacy, I want to say I was super proud, and you should be super proud of Dan Holland and Nick Miller. Those guys in that fucking session when we did, it's Torishi no Kai, right? Like my pronunciation is probably really bad for the kata, but they were fucking outstanding doing it in a hallway under a light with so many people standing around them. I was so proud to be in that lineage and working with those guys. And you should be proud as an instructor that you've brought those guys to that level to do something that way. Like that was the thing I was thinking, like those guys are outstanding human beings and amazing martial artists.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. There's no question about that. I am proud. I feel like my predominant emotion around that is feeling blessed and grateful, because there are some things you just feel like they were given to you. And those guys are so talented. Granted, I've done a lot of work with them. I've spent a lot of time with them and given them my heart and soul, but they came to the table with heavy briefcases, right? Those guys are incredibly smart and incredibly talented. So yes, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, no problem. Sensei Legacy, any proud moments for you personally? Yeah.
I'm proud that I'm a martial artist, and generally everything fits under that. But I had a few moments that pleasured me during the thing. One of them is Lorne Bernard. He's just a young man who teaches Chinese crane. It's the flying crane in his particular way. And I went over.
Right, Sensei?
Pardon me?
You have his book there, right? Flag his book.
Yes, I do.
Book, yeah.
This is okay.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
good.
Great. And he's Sensei Li Zhu Qian. And as I am a white craner, I've been a white craner over 30 years with my sensei. My crane came from the Chinese crane. Everybody knows that. So he gave me one of his books. I read it, learned a little bit about the history of the Chinese crane, even though I have to admit that I was aware of it. And I stood around and watched some of his crane and learned a lot of that. That was a highlight for me. It was a pleasure. And the guy is just an ordinary guy like us. You know, that's what happens to the guys who become in love with martial arts or become great martial artists. To them, it's natural. You know, it's like being a professional baseball player to a professional baseball player is easy. And, you know, seeing another seeing a great martial artist is easy for me to do. The other things, I like seeing, I'm getting on now, so things for me on a physical level are not all too enjoyable. all that enjoyable, but they still are. But I really like watching karate evolve. I really like the group from Silent Tiger. I've known like 3 or 4 or 5 of those young guys, and I watched them since they were like almost babies, just so they could, go in and do tournaments, and then you saw their demonstration on how good and how karate is in really good hands. I love those guys because they're karate. They're our future.
Can't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, the other things are that we had white belts there. We had a few white belts there and about 30, 31 or 35 other members there. That shows me that our dojo, we're doing something right to draw their interest to karate so that they seek out bigger and better karate and martial arts, different martial arts.
Thank
Actually,
you, Sensei.
that's a wonderful point. People surprise you in wonderful ways. We have this 16-year-old girl who does judo at JMAC, very timid. And a month before Capital Conquest, she said, "Hey, can I go out with the group to Capital Conquest?" And I had to say, you're underage. I just don't think we're going to take a minor up there with us. We probably can't take you as part of the group. So I'm on the floor, day 1 of Capital Conquest, getting ready to teach a seminar. And she walks in Ottawa from Ann Arbor unannounced and says, "Hey, Sensei, I'm here." I was like, "Holy crap, that's cool. How'd you get here?" And she goes, "Well, I really wanted to go, so my mom brought me." Like, what a rock star. And she did, 8 hours of seminars at Capital Conquest at 16. Her mom brought her, came alone other than that, and is back at JMAC and now wants to study more than one martial art. And it's like people come into themselves. That's really cool, isn't it? When you see these young people stepping up, because if she sticks with it, she's going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, she jumped into the deep end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Waited and she jumped into the deep end.
Jumped in.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to say, building on what Sensei Legacy said, I'm really proud of my students. My students that came, I'm extremely proud of them. If you don't know, Sensei Suino was broadcast to Europe. Sensei Legacy was broadcast to Europe. I had the opportunity to broadcast with Ben. Ben and I together were broadcast to Europe. And if you don't know, Robert Chlumsky was the person that Hunchetarian sought out to ask to run all of that.
Mm.
I'm extremely proud that I'm not super engaged with the fact that he's a PhD in engineering. Like, that's cool, but he's the type of human being who will step in and help to make an event better and not get any pats on the back. Like, no, I'm super proud of him for that. I'm super proud that he would do that.
Yep.
I was super proud to be up on that stage with Sensei Legacy and turn around and look over my shoulder and see Legacy Shorin-ryu students in all of the different rings, training with all of the different people, white belts, yellow belts, green belts, brown belts, black belts, all over. I was super proud to have my JMAC family members there and be part of that community. And on a personal note, one thing, when I was young, I met Sensei Copeland. I was super proud that he would come over to Sensei Suino's Iaido seminar and look at me from across the room and each other give us the nod that we were going to be partners in that seminar. And I was super proud to be doing that with Sensei Copeland, from knowing him from the time that I was a teenager, to be able to stand across from him and do something. Like, he's the total badass of karate. And the fact that he would come to Sensei Suino's Iaido seminar and give me the nod and we would get to do Iaido together, I'm super proud of that. Super proud. Yeah.
Sensei, I just want to, we got a message here that Sensei Copeland did say, "I was proud to be a student in Sensei Suino's seminar and have Randy help with my cuts and body movement." Pretty cool.
And just so everybody knows, we never discussed that beforehand. That's just fortuitous. There's nothing about that was staged. And if you think that's a lie, you go talk to him in Windsor or come talk to me here. I'll explain.
I wouldn't do that.
Well, what's cool is somehow during the course of all this stuff, this Punch Kick Choke Chat and World Martial Arts Live, Sensei Copeland's become part of this whole family too.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he could walk into my dojo any day and fit right in. And I think I'm pretty confident. We could ask him. I'm pretty sure he'd welcome me if I just knocked on the door of his dojo and said, "Hey, Sensei, I'm here to train." That's cool. This family is growing, and it's awesome.
You know, you say that, Sensei Suino, and not taking anything away from what I said about Sensei Legacy and my relationship with him, but I've often told people that I was lucky to find Sensei Legacy first. And if I had ever found Sensei Copeland first, I probably would have never met Sensei Legacy. Right? That's the type of a martial artist and an instructor that he is. He's in the same vein as Sensei Legacy, the same type of fighter, instructor, cares about his students. Yeah, love that guy.
We had a great question come in, but before we get to that, I just want to, tag on to an old martial arts saying. Hanshi Legacy, you talk about Sifu Bernard, and you're like, and he's just like an average guy. And it's like an average guy who's approaching 60, fit as fuck, been doing martial arts for 39 years, not even 6 years in, went and lived in Malaysia for 5 months just to learn more martial arts, has written multiple books, has his own equipment company. And in our world, that's like an average guy. And there's that old thing, right? Like, how long does it take the average person to get a black belt? The average person doesn't get a black belt. And I just love that that's someone we can look at and be like, yeah, he's just one of us, because that's kind of what we're all doing.
Well, while we're on the love fest for Lorne Bernard, who's awesome, after the event was over, I found him just kind of relaxing in the hallway with his wife, and we started chatting. It turns out his wife and him both love fishing, and so we ended up talking for like an hour about the kind of fishing they like to do and the kind of fishing I like to do. That's going to happen. There's a Lorne Bernard fishing trip in my future, and I would love it if we can get some of our other close confidants on that trip as well.
Yeah, and then we can do some motorcycle riding too, because he's also a motorcycle enthusiast.
100%. So I got two things I got to do. I gotta buy a Harley. So we need to do a bunch of seminars, and after spending 3 days in Gatineau, I think I have to start learning French. Holy crap, there was a lot of French. I understood 4% of it and no more.
I got a tutor for you, Sensei Suino.
Who is that?
My fiance happens to be a French teacher.
Yeah, Sensei Legacy could probably help him with a bit, and so could you, Shaun.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true. Here's the problem. If I have attractive language tutors, I get a very cold reception at home.
I think French is a great idea for you. I'd love to see that.
I can massacre that with ease.
So we got a question that's come in. Robert, do you want to put Driti's camera on and we'll hear from her and what she wants to know?
Hey now.
Listen, before Driti asks her question, I just want to say, if you came to our May training camp, you saw Driti wandering around in the May training camp, taking pictures of all of us. And then Hanshi Tarian said to her, you should join karate. He really worked on her, and then she joined. She's going to be soon standing in front of Sensei Legacy to get her yellow belt. December 3rd, she's going to be standing there. So good for you, Driti.
Listen, you left out a critical part of this. She also came to the Crucible.
That is
as a yellow belt in karate, and was one of the second bee sting recipient during our Crucible, our bee sting Crucible episode.
And the ugly guy behind her is her fiance Stavros, who he and I met during COVID when we were wandering around the halls of the residences, seeing if kids were stuck in the dorms because they couldn't get home. On the day as we were walking around, the conversation came up about martial arts. And then he had a big beard, looked different. And then one day I came in and there's this guy standing there with the University of Waterloo t-shirt. And I said, I work there. And he goes, I know, your name is Randy. I'm Stavros. Right. So anyway, good to see you too, Stavros. Driti, what's your question?
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me, everybody. Lately, since Capital Conquest, I've been thinking a lot about fighting and sparring. And I had a good talk with Sensei about this at Capital Conquest and appreciated his thoughts. But I've just been wondering how necessary it is to have like an innate skill or excitement, right from the beginning in relation to fighting, and how much of that can be learned and still translated into successful fighting, whatever that might mean.
Who are you directing it to first, Dri? Who do you want to answer that question first?
You, Sensei Dauphin.
Okay. So when I came in the dojo, I wanted to be a good fighter. That was the thing that drew me into the dojo. So I already had that as I was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I've had students come in that wasn't their first thing, and then they became fighters, good fighters. But that was my first draw. So I'm going to speak from my own perspective. I think you go through this evolution. Sensei Suino and I talked about this earlier. I don't know why it comes in threes, but there's offense, defense, and then there's kind of tenacity, right? Like your ability to be tough. If you have that when you come in, I think you're way ahead of the game. Like if you're tenacious and you're like tough, people knock you down, you get up, they punch you in the face while the blood's coming out, you're willing to keep fighting. I think that puts you ahead. That's a thing that I wish everybody had when they came to the dojo or in life, a little more tenacity. Then I think in the beginning, most of the beginners, you want to give more than receive. So you work on your offense, you like to punch and kick, and you get frustrated when it doesn't work. But if you're tenacious, then you'll stick with it. And then later, as you move along, you get more seasoned, you're like, man, it's super cool that person just tried to hit me and I slipped out of the way and I was just smiling at them. So your defense kind of kicks in, right? But you got to be tenacious to get that. I think you got to have that mindset and just be that way. That's my answer. I know Sensei Legacy is feverishly writing notes and he's going to have great answers. Who's the next one, Dri? Do you want to direct that to?
Oh, I picked the order. Sensei Benson.
Okay, right on. Nice to see you both. So my innate skill was in athleticism, and I actually don't know that it helped my fighting. I think that, I wrote down fight, and that's like an umbrella, and then under I wrote damn. And that was my experience, was like, I did as an umbrella want to learn how to fight, but I was scared every time. I made a rule for myself for 3 years at the university that anytime there was a chance to fight, I had to force myself to put my hand up. Because if I didn't make that rule, I'd have gotten too scared in the moment to put my hand up when we did a fighting ring. So it was like, you will do this every time. And every time I was scared. I don't mean petrified. I just mean, if I had the choice in that moment, why would I do that? So I didn't necessarily have an innate skill for fighting. I had a hand-eye for what you'd call a jab. That was it. I could move okay because of ballet. But again, I don't think that helped my fighting. The actual stuff where you had to be willing to pay a bit of a price to get in. And when Sensei Dauphin talked about me being a late bloomer, I feel like I just walked through the door of knowing what paying a price meant, like in the last decade. And that I used my innate skills to actually not deepen my fighting, where somebody with 10% or 20% less of that hand-eye probably then accelerated for the next little while. And the excitement, again, made me, oh my God, I fought tonight. I can't believe I was okay. But the actual excitement to fight, like there were nights where I'm like, I hope Sensei doesn't have us fight tonight. But as Sensei Dauphin knows, like I begged him to fight when we started training together. But then when he's like, we're going to fight, I get really genuinely scared. So for me, it was a real blend of all of it. I will say this, if you have it all, the umbrella, then I think all of it can be learned and translated, and it's happening. My brother, he does not want to be touched. He gets ticklish, he gets weird. So he doesn't have the umbrella. So he'll never even step on the path. So no, it can't translate for him because he'd never show up. But if you're showing up, you can be scared, you can be uncertain, you can have what you feel is not a coordinated approach, and you will get excellent if you have the right teacher, and it'll all translate. I actually fucking guarantee it.
Oh, well. Yeah, I think that's very much how I feel too, where I want to be a good fighter, but I still have to, every time I go to sparring class on Friday nights, I really have to push myself to do it.
You're there. You're going.
It doesn't feel comfortable yet.
I hope it never feels comfortable.
That's true.
Yeah. So who do you want to go to next? Sensei Suino or Sensei Legacy?
I'm going with the order that I see on my screen. So Sensei Suino.
Listen, you already you've already proven that you have the advancing mindset, right? That you go in at one level and you can envision what's better and you work towards it. How do I know this? Because you attended the Crucible. The other thing that you proved at the Crucible is you have the tenacity. So you've got the basic ingredients. Good to go. Remember, if you do something once, it's a trial, right? You do something 3 times, it's a habit. You do something 100 times, it's what you do. You do it 1,000 times, it's who you are. Just don't quit. Don't be a quitter. 30 years of this and you're going to be there.
Sounds good.
So last question, who do you want to go to last, Streety?
Punchy Legacy.
Thanks. Well, you're talking about fighting, right? So right now you're talking about fighting in the dojo, I suppose, so that you can start overcoming your fears. The greatest thing you're going to overcome is fear and pain. They lock you up.
Mm-hmm.
If you can calm your mind, if your mind is calm when you get hurt and you don't get excited, that will allow you to reach deeper and deeper, right? So when you're facing somebody in a dojo, you're safe. When you're facing somebody in the street, you're facing somebody who's not likely trained.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see any of us in the street. So your training will overcome that, right? And you have to, the will to be a fighter is good. I mean, it's good because a lot of people want to take karate but don't want to fight. They don't understand it's a fight. You know what I mean? So I don't know what you're worried about, but if you can just learn to make yourself calm and watch what's going on and learn, and like Sensei Dauphin said, it's a fighting art. You're going to get hit. You're going to get hurt. Just try to calm your mind when that happens and try to trust that the next person won't hit you like that. Or if they do, you have to learn how to prepare yourself for that. The most likely winner of a fight, and we're not supposed to talk about Alden or anything, is a tough guy. You have to be able to endure. I have seen a lot of people. I saw a lady get hit one time with just a touch on her chin, and she inhaled and would not exhale. I had to flip her over and hit her in the kidneys to get her respite and massage her body to get her respiratory muscles breathing for her. So stepping into a martial arts dojo and facing an opponent is your greatest achievement.
Great.
I actually wouldn't mind throwing one back at you, Dreedy, and it's related to this. When you go, let's say, and fight, and it goes a little tough, you don't get what you want, you get hit more than you want, and then later, like at night or the next morning, how do you feel?
Oh yeah, I feel good. I don't think I feel scared of getting hit. Like, maybe this is a little vain, but if I ever get hit in a fighting class and then I'm able to like bounce back right away, I kind of feel like a badass and it feels cool. But I don't know, I feel like I worry that there's something I'm supposed to have inside me that I'm missing, but I won't really figure that out, I guess, until I just keep fighting.
Yeah. The answers are in the fighting, right? And, Sensei Legacy, there's something that I learned before he said it. He said it after I learned it. And then when he said it, I was like, that makes total sense. You should expect to get roughed up when you come in the dojo. When I fight with Sensei Benson, I think I'm going to get roughed up a little bit. That's the way I go into that fight. I'm going in to fight with him thinking I'm going to get roughed up a little bit. I learned that by driving to Sensei Legacy and getting roughed up Saturday after Saturday. I would wake up at 5 a.m., get in my car and go, okay, you're going to get roughed up. Like, and then he said that one day and I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. Everybody should expect to get roughed up a little bit when they go in the dojo, whether that's karate, judo, bokken fencing, whatever it is. If you're going in thinking you're not going to get roughed up a little bit, you got the wrong mindset.
Mhm. That's true.
You know, I'm a language guy. Like, roughed up is such a great term. You know, you're not going to get broken, or you're not going to get abused. You know, it reminds me of like an old James Cagney movie where like the guy's shaken and like pushed against the wall. So he's roughed up a little. It's like you come away a little disheveled and a lot stronger for the moment. But like roughed up, I've heard all the versions, but I'm writing that one down. I just dig it. Get a little roughed up.
Yeah, Sensei Legacy, were you going to say something? What did you want to say?
I was just gonna say, after fighting with Randy, I used to feel like I was in a minor car accident the next day. I mean, as long as I was fighting, it's just like a boxer, Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson or somebody. They go and they rest for a couple of days. They've been roughed up. So the saying goes, when two tigers enter into battle, one is really roughed up and the other one is killed.
Mhm.
So you have to expect that. That's what fighting is. Take that in intestinal fortitude with you.
Yeah, just to note, Dreedy, he said he was in a minor car accident and I felt like I had gotten run over by a train.
Just try to make me feel good.
No, I'm not.
No.
Dreedy, thanks for coming on. Stavros, good to see you.
Yeah.
Pain and fear, right? You heard that twice tonight.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you all very much. That was really helpful.
We don't want to see them anymore, Robert. Turn their camera off.
Okay, so does anyone have a question? Because this prompted something for me.
Go.
It's real simple. Like the idea, like, she's going to the fight night. She's going to the crucible. To me, that's sort of the answer, right? Like one of the major phrases in 12-step is just keep coming back. You come back the next day, you will be fine eventually. If today's not your best day, you'll be fine. And is there any way someone could keep coming back and not get it? Like, is that even possible? Like, I'll start with you, Hanshi. Like, see, like someone just keeps training.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, just the idea that she's going to the fight night. She's going to the crucible. She's doing the extra stuff. Is there any way someone can just keep showing up and not get it?
I suppose it's possible, but what I would like to say is I was walking around at that seminar that we put on and she was taking pictures. She told me that her friend was in martial arts because I just talked to her for a couple of minutes. And since that time, I've seen her in everywhere. So I see the interest is there. And if it comes from the inside, the outside will obey.
Yeah. Sensei,
I'm sorry. I faced a lot of women fighters, and women are just as good fighters as men. Just look at the MMA. If you look at some of those ladies, it scares the hell out of you. Can you imagine somebody grabbing one of them in the street?
Your goddaughter is pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah. Sydney is a very good fighter. We've had a lot of good female fighters that are high-ranking dans in our dojo. Any one of them can knock you out.
Yeah, stand in front of
Patricia
Beauregard and flip off to her and see what's going to happen to you. You're going to be looking at your feet over top of your head. Benson, who are you going to next?
Oh, Sensei Suinos, can someone just keep coming back and not get it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's people in the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame for a reason, right? That they were people that were exceptionally gifted with something, right? Physical talent, tenacity, perseverance, good instructors, and a lifetime of commitment. there's some people who get into martial arts that maybe aren't going to get that good. Of course, we know if they quit, they're going to stop. But there's a realistic difference among people. People are wired differently. Some people have different nervous systems, different amount of coordination. Some people aren't going to ever get great. Now, if they want to come into martial arts and get personal satisfaction from making progress and getting better, and they stay in it, they're going to get somewhat better, but they're never going to be at the, they're not going to be in the 90th percentile, not going to be in the top 10%. That's true. I don't want to dwell on it. If they're getting satisfaction, that's great. I don't think that conversation we had, I don't think that young lady's in that category. I think she's in the other category. She's in the potential to be a really good fighter eventually, right? Which is why I made those 2 points about her mindset of wanting to advance and her tenacity. But yeah, some people aren't going to get great. That's just realistic. But that doesn't mean they can't get better.
Sensei Dauphin?
So some people are not going to get better. Things aren't equal. Since like he once said to me once, like some people have 10 cents, some people have 8 cents, and they're never going to have 10 cents. Right? Like no matter what they do, they're stuck. They just don't have that. We all know, I don't want to categorize it like who has 8 cents and who has 10 cents. Anybody watching this can decide for themselves. I will say as an instructor that if you think about effort, intelligence, and skill, I would like to have it in that order for a student. I would like somebody to have extreme effort, then extreme intelligence, and then skill. And if you reverse that order and somebody's super skilled, but they're a dummy and they can't work hard, they're going nowhere fast. No matter how nice their roundhouse kick is, or, what their omoplata is, or how nice they can yank the sword out, like it's not happening, right? I think the first thing is you got to have the will and the effort. Then you got to have the brain box to line up with that. And then I think even if you're not blessed with skill, and maybe it's because of me, right? I wasn't super skilled in the beginning. I didn't have the best kicks. I didn't have the hard punches, but I put the fucking work in. And I don't know, I was moderately intelligent, right? Like intelligent enough that when somebody told me to do something, I could put it into my mind and then make the effort to make the skill happen, right? Whereas if you just have the skill without the other things, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, attitude's important too, isn't it? I mean, if you don't buy into the belief system, right? And I don't really understand why somebody stays in a dojo when they don't truly believe in the system, but sometimes that happens. Someone comes in, they might put in effort. Well, that's probably the thing that gets foiled, right? They might have the intelligence and the skill. They're probably not going to put the effort in if they don't believe in it, right? They're skeptical about it for some reason. And that's a good way to foil yourself. I don't think we suffer from that in our dojos a lot, but I do know of some instructors who are struggling with students that have that problem.
Good point, Sensei. Benson, answer your own question.
It's funny because my initial impulse is that if someone keeps showing up, they will get it. There's no way they can't. And I'm just thinking about, there's a difference between like showing up Monday, Wednesday for class, but I'm talking like, let's say the fight night. You show up every Friday night, if you're one of Sensei Dauphin students, Friday night for the hour of fighting for the next 20 years. I just feel like I don't care who you are, you'll get it, because you'll either quit and stop going, or it'll just sink down to a point where even with whatever your body type is. And for me, it's because if you do go, you'll have already answered 90% of the problems, and even talking about being a late bloomer, right? Like, because I am an intelligent dude, I could understand what something is before I knew it and confuse the two. And that actually can slow progress. But after 15, 20 years, that evens out. If somebody's not as gifted physically, it evens out. And so I think my answer is that it's what you're showing up for. Like if you're just tapping into class, you'll get good at the things in class. But I feel like then karate eventually asks more of you to become more of a lifestyle. And at that point, if you enter that door, I don't know how you wouldn't get it without, I just don't even know how you would.
Well, you might not have the same assets, right? Like if you were born without a left arm, no matter how much you go to the dojo, you're not going to land a left jab.
Right. That
Right.
makes sense. Yep.
And I think thought I had when you were talking about late bloomer is, Shaun, you're knowledgeable about a lot of things. You're super knowledgeable, but you're not wise on the same level that you are knowledgeable, right? I'm saying that as your instructor, right? Like knowledge and wisdom are two different things.
Absolutely.
And they go hand in hand. You have to be knowledgeable first to be wise about something.
Yeah.
But we're on this call with Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino. There's no doubt about it. Sensei Legacy is wise and knowledgeable, right? And you said you're a language guy, right? So wisdom is, what you know, put into practice, and then you become very wise about it.
And that's, I'm just having fun with this riff. Like, and then I think, Hanshi, you have a thought is there's what I said is understanding. Like you explain it to me, I'll understand it immediately. Then it'll take 30 years to know it. And then we're walking through the wisdom door, hopefully.
Right.
Hanshi?
A little bit like, I use this to make people understand that not everybody is the cream of the crop. Like, if you're a professional football player, I've mentioned this before. If you're a professional football player and you're going home for the weekend, say you play for the Detroit Lions, God. And your friends are in a field playing football, right? Because they like football. They're out there playing it. And you get out, you can go out there and you can play with them. But if your friends are on the way to a football game and you and your professional friends are playing or practicing for a Sunday night game, can they go in there and play with them? Not likely. So there are different levels of martial artists. There are the guys that are just suited for it or just like anything else. But it doesn't mean they can't do it. Right? It's just that if they had to face, say, a professional boxer or something like that, they couldn't. But if they had to fight someone in the street attacking them, they would do a lot of good for themselves. Martial arts. So there are different levels. The water is deeper in different places.
Yeah, Stipe Miocic said the exact same thing when he fought Nuga. He said, you're going to see that there's levels to this game. This guy's coming in. He might be physically more, but there's levels to this. Right. And yeah, and he crushed that guy. Then he got knocked out later by him.
Oh yeah. It really is amazing. And this is sort of a side note, but even what you're talking about with different like rule set sports levels, can you go like there's some quote going around, it's like, an MMA guy can do okay against a boxer, but a boxer would never do well in MMA, right? Because the one includes the other, but the other doesn't include all the rest. And that's where when we're talking about like skill versus knowledge, wisdom, like there's the component of time. So boxer doesn't know how to deal with takedowns and kicks. Somebody 5 years in doesn't even know the paradigm of wisdom that someone at 35 years would know, which I don't know.
But then there's also strategy. The boxer will win if he makes the MMA guy fight a boxing strategy.
Yep.
We just went through this, right? Like we're coming full circle back to the beginning, right?
Yep.
Which is the mind, right? The strategy linked with the training, the tenacity, the effort, all those things together is what, like, the best judo guy is going to beat the weakest karate guy. That's just going to happen. It's not the art always. It's the art combined with the person and the way they can make the effort happen.
Mhm.
One of the cool things about seeing 10 kickboxing matches that Friday night was that we got to see a whole range of experiences. We saw Alden and a few others who really, it was their first, kickboxing match in public. And then we saw guys that had, I don't know, 3 fights, or I guess a couple of them had in the range of 10 or a dozen fights, and you could see the difference in their approach.
Mm.
The least experienced guys really were just sort of flying in and trying stuff and usually getting tied up. Although what was cool about Alden's fight was his learning curve in 2 rounds was phenomenal. Like his second round was so much, he delivered his tactics so much better in round 2. But a lot of those guys were just like jacked and excited, and they went in there and they just ended up not being able to do their fight because they didn't know how to be strategic about it. As they had more experience, you saw more strategy. And we also got to see a wonderful 100% clean knockout. Right. It's good to see that in the range, right? To see everything else going on and recognize that can happen. And it did.
It reminds me, there's that great line in a Bruce Springsteen song, Badlands. And it's just a simple line, but the line is, I want to go out tonight. I want to find out what I got. And that's Bruce in his young man phase in the 70s. And it's such a beautiful line. Like, I think so many of us can relate. Like, I got to know if I got the stuff. I got to know toe to toe if this is real and if it works, and whatever version of that. And, whether it's trying to pick somebody up or getting in a scrap or doing it in the ring, like I think it's such a human need. I got to go out tonight. I got to find out what I got. Fucking poetry.
Shaun, I want to ask, we started talking about strategy. So I'd like to talk about that for a minute. And I know that Sensei Suino and Sensei Legacy are going to have the deepest thoughts on this, and you and I are going to pull up the rear. But
Make Hanchi go last, or there'll be nothing left for the rest of us.
Yeah.
But, on that note, Sensei Suino, you're saying that, but I remember, when I got into BJJ and one of my colleagues came down, he came to the Crucible, and you said, look, he's got great techniques, but he's got no strategy. Like you said that, like he doesn't have any, he knows how to do an arm bar or how to but not how to set it up. So my question is about strategy, right? And I think I don't know if it's in the dojo or in competition. Like, I'm not really sure where I'm going to move with this question, but what are thoughts on strategy? And the importance in martial arts, as you develop, when should it kick in? When should strategy be kicking in? At what level? And how important is it for you to be overcoming another opponent? Because I think if there's not another person standing in front of you, then strategy probably doesn't matter, right? So how important is strategy? When should it kick in? Let's talk about that. And I don't know, Sensei Suino, who do you want me to start with? Because you said make Hanchi Legacy go last. So is that... Do you want to kick it off, Sensei Suino?
Sure. I'll tell you when it shouldn't kick in. I was teaching a judo intro tonight. 13-year-old kid, really excited about judo. His first intro lesson. I was teaching him Osotogari, right, which is a major outside leg sweep. I did it twice, and then I had him do it. He got halfway through his first one, and then he said, I'm confused. So I showed him it one more time, and he goes, well, if you do that, why don't I just put my leg back? So he was trying to think about strategy in his first intro lesson in judo in the history of his life.
Yeah, that's the what if, right? Well,
right,
what if
right. What
happened?
if, right? So that's too soon to be thinking about strategy. And for most, I think for the average person, the first few years really are, the first 2 to 3 years are probably too soon to be thinking about strategy in any kind of depth. I think those people should be focused on making their basics really, really good, making the movements fundamental to themselves, changing their bodies, understanding things like distancing and timing as tactics, but not thinking about, how can I strategically gain an advantage to someone else. Now, somebody who's really bright, somebody who's got a fast clock could probably get in there sooner. But if you don't have your fundamentals down, you can have all the strategy in the world. It's not going to do you any good. So I just think that there's a rising bell curve, and the first one is things like techniques, right? Skills and techniques, the building blocks. And the second bell curve is tactics, and the third one is strategy. And you've got to develop them in sequence. So I can't give you an exact time, but strategy is late. It's for a mature young martial artist, not for a beginner.
Okay, that's cool. I like that answer. And then I'm gonna build on it with you, Sensei Suino, before we go to Sensei Legacy and Sensei Benson. So how complex do you think strategy should be? And let's talk about competition, right? Like, how complex should the strategy be?
You asking me?
Yeah. Before we go to the other people, how complex do you think it should be?
It should be as simple as it can possibly be and still be beneficial. Because a complex strategy is going to fail, right? Unless you're a genius, and there ain't that many of those. So sometimes strategy and tactics converge. If the strategy is pay close attention to distance and use it productively, that's really a tactic as well, right? That's a simple strategy. That's just a tactic. And sometimes that's enough. Often that's enough, right? And then a much longer conversation is, how does strategy look when you've been doing something for 30 years or 50 years? My groundwork, when I roll, my strategy is a complete lack of strategy, right? I'm fighting with no mind. But that's the result of 50 years. It's not something you just assume like a hat, right?
Right. Yeah, it just evolves.
Yeah.
Before we go to Sensei Legacy, I'll go to you next, Shaun, but I want to provide a thought on that. So tactic versus strategy is a really cool thought that I need to think about a little more, a tactic versus a strategy. But I remember once losing a match against somebody, and they hit me with the same, it was like, I don't know, like 5-3 or something like that. Same dinky roundhouse kick. They were a lefty, same dinky roundhouse kick over and over and over again. And then Sensei Legacy gave me a different strategy to use. And building on your point, Sensei Suino, it was super simple and super easy to employ. He said, move to his right. Because I was going to fight him again. I was going to fight him in the Dominican Republic. He had qualified. So I was going to fight him there. And Sensei Legacy said, just keep moving to your right. And then that match was 5-1. And I got all the points because he got a penalty point because I hit him too hard on one of the moves as I was moving to the right. Anyway, and then I also want to say, I don't know if this is a strategy or a tactic or just a rule, but Sensei Copeland once said, it's not when you're going to get hit, you're going to get hit. Make sure you hit first and make sure you hit the most and make sure you hit last. I don't know if that's a tactic or a strategy. I got to think about these things. But anyway, Benz, where do you go with this before we go to Sensei Legacy last?
Mine will be relatively brief, not for lack of ideas, but really that idea about, tactic, strategy. And then I even throw the word technique in there because that's that basics. A lot of times with my newer belts, I'm using tactics or strategies, which I'm still a little confused on, as a way to refine their techniques, so that their kicks have the knee pointing or the relative distancing, and I'll use ways while they're free sparring to drop ideas in. So I think for me, I just want to go back to the ask, when should it kick in? I mean, I think it's a bit like you, Sensei Suino, when the basic fundamentals are all they're fighting with. At that point, I'm real happy to start dropping in ideas of a more specific nature. And who knows when that is? Like, I've got 6-month white belts who are always standing like this. They're always blocking and hitting back as far as it goes. And it's like, great. And then what I really love to do is to just drop in for each of them. Let's say if they're fighting each other, I need you to try this, look for when they do this and respond with this. And what I love about it as a way that I've grown my fighters in Toronto is how good everything else gets, how good they get at blocking when they're just looking for that roundhouse kick, because they're getting unconscious about all the other stuff. And then all of a sudden they're just pop, pop, pop. Oh, I didn't land the kick. And it's like, right, but you just threw 4 relaxed deep blocks without reaching for a thing. So that's why I actually like feathering strategy quite early, as long as the basics-ish. And by that, I just mean they're always going to be developing. So as long as the basics are sound enough and the directionality sound, I kind of like getting at it early.
Awesome. Sensei Legacy, I'm going to, at Sensei Suino's direction, I'm sending it to you. And I definitely learned more tactics or strategy from you. And I remember like it not working and you saying, stick with it, stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. When it works, it's always going to work. Stick with it, stick with it. When do you think it needs to kick in? And yeah. What do you think about tactics, strategy? What are your thoughts on that, Sensei?
The key word in everything and anything in martial arts, in my opinion, is understanding, right? If you get, before you know how to use it, you have to understand something, right? You have to understand it. Sometimes you get too complex and you get caught in your own complexities, I guess you would call it. Sometimes you can get yourself messed up as opposed to making things simple and direct, you know. And so basically that's it. I'm just sort of adding on to Sensei Suino's idea, but that's it. You have to understand it before you can start doing strategy. How can you, it's like, may I use this bad example of the checker player is trying to play checkers. It's not quite the same. So you can't get too complicated. You need to be, even in chess, you need to see things for what they are. And the only way you can do that is get out there and do it and get to understand it. All the rest, I think you've all done.
It's funny how you always come to the point, right? Like checkers is a game that's more like luck and, you know, you understand how, and then chess is a game of strategy for sure. Like, you know, you can be down to like 3 pieces and the other person can have all their pieces and you can still win with good strategy. Yeah. You always get to the heart of the matter, Sensei.
Well, he got to the heart of the matter. What is on my clock is 10 o'clock on the dot. Should we round the horn? Should we just say goodnight?
Before we go around the horn, Shaun, I just want to ask, is there anything super cool or important? You could just say pass, but is there anything in your life that's super cool or important that
like, you're asking me?
you'd like to share with the community? Because I don't want to.
I would
just
love
want to
to
give you the opportunity, not me be the one.
I appreciate that, Sensei. I dropped an F-bomb earlier tonight, and that was the fiance bomb. Since we've last chatted, I proposed to my incredible, fucking wonderful, can't believe I met her and can't believe she said yes, Anais. And yeah, you know, you talk about being a late bloomer. I've never been engaged. I've never been married. And I just, I'm a romantic. I held out for a ride or die. And I've dated truly wonderful women. I know you disagree on some front, Sensei Dauphin, but none of them were that for me. And we couldn't get there. And this is my person. And I dropped on a knee and I asked her and she said yes. And I feel like I'm on a platform now with someone to take on the world. And it's a new feeling. And I didn't think it would feel this different or exciting to have made that commitment, but it really does.
Well, we're all happy for you. I know Sensei Lacey and Sensei Suino and I were all like, I'm stoked for you.
Thanks. And I appreciate you asking because, yeah, it's really special. And we all know how important these foundations are. And somebody who gets your training, right? Like this woman's seen me leave night after night, day after day, and is real happy and proud of that part of me.
Yeah, you had to go through a bunch of girls before you could become wise about what a relationship was, right?
Well, that's it.
You finally
remember feel Nancy. I'm like, babe, I gotta go get some more wisdom. So, my sensei said, thank you, Sensei Copeland. I see the message and congratulations. I really appreciate that. Sensei Dauphin, do you want to tell us what's coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to lean on Sensei Suino a little bit for that too, but we have lots of cool things coming up next year, but before next year happens, we got cool things happening this year. And I know Sensei Paul Bonner is going to be coming on, and he's a use of force person in Ontario in the Ontario Police College. So really excited to be talking to him. And then we got Devin Harris coming on, and Sensei Suino, you can talk about his martial arts experience. I know he is a martial artist, but I think every martial artist is going to value who he is. So maybe you want to tee it up. Like there's a Canadian connection with John Candy too.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, Devin Harris did some Goju-Ryu in the past. I know his son is very active in Goju-Ryu. But what I wanted to capture, and I know we will because he's very good at talking about this, is that he grew up in Jamaica. He went into the Jamaican Army and ended up on the Jamaican Olympic team on the famous bobsled team that ended up resulting in the movie Cool Runnings. And he's now a motivational speaker, super nice guy that I got introduced to. I interviewed him on a podcast that I've done separately, and he's interviewed me as well. And I just thought he'd be a great fit for this, even though he's not really like first and foremost a martial artist. I think many of the things, the trajectory of his life and many of his experiences and wisdoms are going to resonate with our audience. And so I was jacked when he said he would come on the show.
Can't wait.
That's December 1st.
Yeah. And before Shaun, you say the thank yous and close us out. One thing we need to be better at is if you're watching this tonight live, or you're watching it in the future and you're thinking, this is a super cool guest that you guys need to get on and talk to, whether a martial artist or not a martial artist, please send that name forward to me, Sensei Suino, Sensei Legacy, Shaun, anybody that you know that's associated with our podcast. We'd love to talk to them or figure out if we would love to talk to them.
Absolutely. Figure out if we love to talk to them. Absolutely. And Robert just put in the thing, drop us a line here. At the contact. That won't be up for much longer because I'm going to say our thank yous, and then we're going to say our good night. Robert Schlemsky, Justin Shea, Andrei Sedashev, Alden Adair, and Jesse Vita, who I forgot last week, and I'm so happy to remember this week, who help us run the behind the scenes, who make sure our social medias are, up to date, and also who just run this computer, like throwing up the contact right as we talk about it. It's a gift to have them as part of the show, and it's a gift to have you all here as part of the show. We're really grateful you came and watched and checked in. And Senseis, thank you so much for this chat tonight. I had a blast.
Love this show.
Yeah, we'll see you all soon.
See you, everybody. Have a
Peace
great
out,
night.
everybody.